She stood there shaking. The whole class was quiet. Her test paper was in the teacher's hand, torn. "I know what you did," the teacher said. Her voice was cold, sharp like broken glass. Everyone turned to look, eyes full of judgment. One girl whispered, "She cheated." Aaliyah's heart dropped. She didn't cheat. She would never. But her words were stuck. Her voice had disappeared. The teacher pointed to the door. "Office, now." Aaliyah walked out, but her legs felt like stone. Tears burned in her eyes. She wanted to scream. She wanted to disappear. That was the moment everything changed. Aaliyah sat on the bench outside the office. Her hands trembled. Her chest felt tight. She kept replaying the moment, again and again. She didn't understand. Why her? Why now? She studied so hard. She followed every rule. She never copied. Not even once. A week ago, everything was fine. Aaliyah was proud of herself. She had just gotten an A on her science project. Her mom hugged her that day, called her my little star. But now she felt like a shadow, like her light had been stolen. She could still hear the way Mrs. Griffin said it. "I know what you did." But she didn't do anything. Nothing wrong, nothing bad. She just wanted to be believed, to be seen, to be heard. But the teacher didn't ask, didn't even let her explain. Now her future felt shaky. Her name was being whispered in the halls. She could feel it, like a weight on her back. She wiped her tears quickly. The door opened. A voice called her in. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. She sat across from the principal. Her eyes were red, but she didn't cry anymore. Mrs. Griffin stood beside him, arms crossed. Her face was tight like stone. "Aaliyah," the principal said slowly, "you've been accused of cheating." Aaliyah didn't speak right away. She looked at the floor. Her voice was small when she answered. "I didn't cheat," Mrs. Griffin scoffed. She placed two papers on the table. "This one is hers," she said, pointing. "And this one is Jason's. Look at the answers. Identical." Aaliyah looked down. Yes, the answers looked the same, but she didn't copy. She didn't even see Jason's paper. He sat behind her, far behind. "I studied all weekend," Aaliyah said quietly. Her hands were shaking. "My mom helped me. I didn't copy anyone." Mrs. Griffin didn't believe her. She didn't even look at her. The principal gave a heavy sigh. He looked tired. "We take cheating very seriously. This could go on your record." Aaliyah's heart sank. "I didn't cheat," she said again, stronger this time. "I promise." They didn't say much after that. They told her they would investigate. But Aaliyah knew what that meant. They didn't trust her. Not really. When she got home, she went straight to her room. She closed the door and buried her face in the pillow. She didn't even want to eat. Her mother knocked once. "Aaliyah?" Aaliyah didn't answer. She was too ashamed, too scared. She didn't want her mother to know. Not yet. At school the next day, things were worse. People stared, whispered, laughed. "She's the one who cheated," someone said in the hallway. Aaliyah kept walking. She didn't look back, but her eyes burned. Her hands were clenched into fists. When she got to class, she saw Jason. He looked nervous. He didn't smile at her. He didn't say hi. He looked away. And something clicked in Aaliyah's mind. Why was he so quiet? Why was he avoiding her? A new feeling started to grow. Not just fear, not just shame. Now, anger. Something wasn't right, and she was going to find out what. At lunch, Aaliyah sat alone. Her tray was full, but she wasn't hungry. She poked her food with her fork. People walked past her table and stared. Some whispered, some smirked. She kept hearing the word cheater over and over. It hurt like a knife every time. Then someone sat down across from her. It was Layla, the only person who still talked to her. Layla had curly hair, bright eyes, and a soft voice. "Hey," she said gently. Aaliyah looked up. "I don't believe what they're saying," Layla whispered. "I know you didn't cheat." Aaliyah's lips trembled. "Thank you." Layla leaned in. "Something's weird. I was watching during the test." Aaliyah's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I sit near Jason," Layla said. "And I saw him drop his paper. He panicked and picked it up real quick. But when he saw Mrs. Griffin wasn't looking, he started copying something." Aaliyah leaned forward, her hands shaking. "You saw that?" Layla nodded. "But I wasn't sure what he was doing. Until now." Aaliyah stared at her tray. Her heart pounded hard in her chest. This was it. This was her chance to clear her name. She stood up quickly. "Can you tell the principal what you saw?" Layla looked nervous. "I can try." Aaliyah nodded. That was enough. That afternoon, they went to the office together. They sat in front of the secretary and asked to speak to the principal. He wasn't in, but they left a message. Layla wrote a short note. I saw Jason copying during the test, and please talk to me. They left it with the secretary. Aaliyah felt a little lighter, just a little. But the fight wasn't over, not yet. Later that day, she passed Jason in the hallway again. This time, she didn't look away. She stopped. He froze. His face turned pale. She didn't say a word, just stared at him. He looked scared and guilty, and Aaliyah knew he had something to hide. The next morning, Aaliyah was called to the office again. Her heart beat fast as she walked down the hall. Her shoes felt heavy. She didn't know what was going to happen. Layla was already there, sitting in a chair. She gave Aaliyah a nervous smile. The principal came out of his office. Both of you, come in. They followed him inside. Mrs. Griffin was already seated. She didn't even look at Aaliyah. The principal folded his hands on the desk. Layla, he said, you left a note. You said you saw something during the test? Layla nodded. Yes, sir. I sit close to Jason. I saw him copy answers from a folded paper on his lap. He dropped it once and picked it up fast. He wasn't looking at Aaliyah at all. Mrs. Griffin's eyes narrowed. That's not possible. I saw the test papers myself. They were exactly the same. The principal turned to her. But you didn't actually see Aaliyah copying, did you? Mrs. Griffin didn't answer. She looked annoyed. The principal leaned back. This is serious. If Jason used a cheat sheet, we need to confirm that. Aaliyah finally spoke. I told you I didn't cheat. I studied all weekend. I worked hard. No one believed me. Her voice cracked. Tears filled her eyes again, but she didn't cry. The principal nodded slowly. I understand. We'll talk to Jason, and we'll review the test seating arrangement again. Mrs. Griffin looked uncomfortable. She adjusted her glasses. I didn't mean to accuse her unfairly. The tests looked too similar. Aaliyah cut in softly. You didn't even ask me. The room went silent. The principal looked thoughtful. Thank you, Layla. That was brave. He looked at Aaliyah next. I'll be in touch soon. And if what we find supports your side, we'll make things right. Aaliyah nodded, but her heart was still heavy. Being right didn't take away the pain. It didn't erase the shame, the stares, the whispers. The damage had already started. And deep down she wondered, would they really fix it? Or was the harm already done? That night, Aaliyah couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, wide awake. Her room was dark and quiet, but her mind was loud. Every voice from school echoed in her head. She cheated. She copied. She's fake. She pulled her blanket tighter. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not because she was weak, but because she was tired. Tired of fighting to be believed. Tired of being treated like a problem. Tired of being looked at like she didn't belong. The next day at school, everything felt different. Jason wasn't in class. The chair behind her was empty. Whispers filled the room. Did he get caught? Did she snitch? Good for her. Mrs. Griffin walked in late. She didn't say good morning. She didn't look at Aaliyah. The class started, but Aaliyah wasn't listening. Her heart was beating too fast. Halfway through the period, the door opened. Jason walked in slowly, holding a yellow slip. He looked pale. His eyes were red. He walked past Aaliyah without a word. He didn't sit down. He walked straight to the teacher's desk. Can I say something? He asked. The room went still. Mrs. Griffin looked confused. Right now? Jason nodded. He turned to face the class, then looked straight at Aaliyah. I copied, he said. I brought answers from home. I hid them on my lap. Aaliyah didn't cheat. She didn't even look at me. The class gasped. Mrs. Griffin froze. So did the principal, who had just stepped into the room behind Jason. Jason handed over the paper. It was mine. I'm sorry. Aaliyah stared at him. Her chest was tight. She didn't know whether to cry or scream. Everything she said was true. Now they all knew. The principal nodded. He looked at Aaliyah. We'll talk more later, but you can hold your head high. The class was silent. Everyone was watching her, but this time it felt different. They weren't looking with judgment. They were looking with shame, regret, respect. Aaliyah looked down at her notebook. Her fingers were still shaking, but her heart felt stronger. The truth had come out. But the scars would take longer to heal. After class, students walked up to her, one by one. Some just nodded. Some whispered sorry. A few even said, I should have known better. Aaliyah didn't smile, not yet. She just nodded back. It felt strange, like being seen for the first time. But she hadn't changed. She was still the same girl, the one who studied hard, the one who believed in fairness. Layla hugged her tight in the hallway. I told you, she said. You didn't deserve any of that. Aaliyah hugged her back. Thank you for speaking up. No one else would have. Layla smiled. You would have done the same for me. Later that afternoon, the principal called Aaliyah and her mom into his office. Her mom looked worried. She held Aaliyah's hand tightly. The principal spoke gently. We've removed the accusation from her record. The teacher will also make a public correction. Her mother sighed in relief. She looked at Aaliyah with proud eyes. My baby didn't cheat. I knew it. Aaliyah didn't speak. She just held her mom's hand. That warmth, it was the first comfort she had felt in days. Mrs. Griffin was called in too. She looked stiff. She didn't sit down. She looked at Aaliyah. I apologize, she said. I was wrong to accuse you without proof. I let my judgment get ahead of the facts. Aaliyah looked at her, and for the first time, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel afraid. She didn't feel like the guilty one. She simply said, thank you for saying that. It didn't erase what happened. It didn't undo the stares, or the tears, or the fear, but it was a start. A small piece of justice, a truth that had finally broken through the silence. As they left the office, Aaliyah's mom wrapped her arm around her. You're stronger than they know, she said, and smarter than they expected. Aaliyah smiled a little. It was soft, but real, because she had made it through, and now they had to see her differently. The next day, something unexpected happened. At the start of homeroom, Mrs. Griffin stood in front of the class. She looked nervous. Her voice wasn't as sharp as usual. I need to say something, she began. I made a mistake. The class went quiet. No one moved. No one breathed. I accused Aaliyah of cheating, she said, but it was false. The real student who cheated has admitted it. I should have asked more questions. I should have listened. I'm sorry. Aaliyah sat still. Everyone turned to her. Some students looked embarrassed. Some gave her soft nods. Others just stared. Mrs. Griffin continued, This has taught me something about fairness, about listening, and about how wrong assumptions can hurt good people. She turned to Aaliyah. I truly apologize. Aaliyah nodded. She didn't need to speak. Her silence said everything. After class, more students came to her. Some offered to sit with her at lunch. Others invited her to join their study group. It was weird, a little too late, but still, it was something. In the hallway, Jason walked up to her again. He looked ashamed. He kept his head down. I'm sorry for lying, he mumbled. I was scared, but it was wrong. Aaliyah looked at him. She took a breath. I forgive you, but don't ever do that to anyone else again. He nodded quickly, then walked away. She didn't need him to say anything else. She had spoken her truth. That week, her mom surprised her with something special. A framed note with just 5 words. I believe you. Always, Mom. Aaliyah hung it by her bed, right where the morning sun would shine on it, because no matter how the world tried to bend her, she would remember who she was. And she would never forget what it felt like, to be doubted, to be alone, and to rise anyway. The following week, something beautiful happened. Aaliyah was called up during the school assembly. She didn't know why. Her heart pounded as she walked to the stage. The principal stood beside her. He spoke into the mic. This past week, we learned a hard lesson about truth, about justice, and about courage. He turned to Aaliyah. This student was wrongly accused. She stood strong. She held on to the truth, and she reminded us all why it's important to listen before we judge. The crowd clapped softly at first, then louder. Then louder. Aaliyah's eyes filled with tears, not sad ones, proud ones. She looked out at the students. Some were smiling. Some looked down in guilt. Some looked inspired. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The moment was louder than words. After the assembly, kids she didn't even know came up to her. You didn't deserve that. Thank you for standing up. You gave me courage. Aaliyah didn't expect to become a voice, but maybe her pain had a purpose. Later that day, a younger girl tapped her shoulder. She looked nervous. I want to be strong like you when I grow up. Aaliyah smiled. Just remember this, she said softly. Even if the whole world doubts you, believe in yourself. Always. That night, she wrote in her journal, for the first time in days. She wrote, They tried to break me. They tried to silence me, but I didn't let them. And now they see me. Aaliyah wasn't just the girl who got accused anymore. She was the girl who stood tall, who didn't break, who made people think twice. And maybe that would help the next girl, the next time, the next fight. A month later, life at school had changed. Aaliyah walked through the halls without fear. No more whispers, no more stares. She wasn't invisible anymore. And she wasn't just that girl who got accused. She was Aaliyah. Strong, smart, respected. She joined the student council. She started tutoring younger kids after school. Even teachers greeted her differently now. But not everything healed quickly. Some scars stayed, like the way her stomach still tightened during tests, or how she still looked around to see who was watching her. One afternoon, she saw Mrs. Griffin in the hallway. Their eyes met. This time, Mrs. Griffin smiled, a small, real smile. Aaliyah nodded back, not with anger, not with hate, just peace, because she had grown beyond that moment. She had turned pain into power. At home, her mom framed her report card, straight A's. You didn't just pass your test, her mom said. You passed life's test. Aaliyah smiled and hugged her. That hug felt like home, like strength passed from one woman to the next. And then one morning, she got a letter. It was from a girl at another school, someone she had never met. The letter said, I heard what happened to you. I'm going through something like that now. Reading your story gave me hope. Thank you for being brave. Aaliyah held the letter close. Tears filled her eyes. Good tears, strong tears, because her story was bigger than her now. It was a light for someone else still stuck in the dark. And that's when she knew. Even unfair moments have meaning. Even pain can be a gift. If you stand, if you speak, if you believe in yourself, no matter who doubts you. Aaliyah stood at her window, watching the sunset. The sky was painted with gold, pink, and soft purple. It looked just like freedom. She took a deep breath. Not because she was tired, but because she was full. Full of lessons, full of strength. She thought about everything that had happened. The lie, the shame, the fear, the truth, the courage. They tried to break her. They tried to silence her. They tried to make her small. But she refused. She rose. She had been accused, judged, and nearly crushed. But she stood tall, not with anger, but with truth, with dignity, with fire in her soul. And now the world had to see her for who she truly was. Not a cheat, not a problem, not just a black girl in a classroom, but a voice, a light, a fighter. Her story would not be forgotten, because it wasn't just her story. It was the story of many. Girls like her, kids like her, hearts like hers. And as the sun dipped low, Aaliyah whispered to herself, they'll never forget my name. Because in a world that tried to silence her, she chose to speak, to stand, to rise. And in the end, that made all the difference.